You already know I hate long intros. This is the Late Night Cooldown. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine. Make sure you follow me and the podcast's official platforms, link in bio, and let's get into it. So, this is Lessons in Homelessness, and this is going to be an in-depth look on what it's like living on the streets, what I learned, and how can we move forward from this. Homelessness is an issue that affects everyone every day in our modern society. One of the lessons I learned while I was homeless was that it can be so exhausting to constantly be awake and on the move and have nowhere to go at the end of the night. I remember this one moment in downtown Vancouver. I was in an A&W charging my phone, and I was so exhausted that I ended up passing out on the table with my phone and my cigarettes in my bag right above my head, right by my head. And I would periodically wake up and make sure all my stuff was still there until the last time I did, I looked and my phone was gone. They stole my cigarettes. They left my bag though. I was mostly pissed about the cigarettes, but your phone is a form of entertainment, a form of communication. This was in 2023 and I was pretty new to the city. I used my phone to navigate around, and without the phone, I had to come up with some different ways to get around and to get to where I needed to be. Not that I really had anywhere to be. I kind of lived on the premise of I'll end up where I need to end up and I'll meet who I need to meet in order to get to where I need to be. And that worked out pretty well, but not so many others are quite as lucky as I was. Because when you don't have your IDs, it makes it hard or impossible to access certain services. It makes it difficult to get medical care, and it makes it difficult, to prove who you are. And when you don't have any ID, it's almost like a piece of your identity is actually missing. Typical people have certifications like their birth certificate and their IDs to say, this is who I am, this is where I live. And when you don't have those things, you almost feel naked. You feel a bit more vulnerable because you're like, do I really exist? Obviously, you do, but it's hard to prove that you do exist without those IDs. So, a question I'll pose to you is, how can we improve community and government services to better accommodate homeless people who don't have ID? Another thing I learned is that a lot of these homeless people that we judge or look down upon are actually some of the most kind, caring, and generous people that you'll ever meet. Someone who has nothing is willing to give everything they got to you so that you suffer a little bit less, whether it be the last bit of change in their pocket, a cigarette, or whatever food they may have. Someone who has nothing is more willing to give you something than the billionaire living in who knows where. Think about that. There was this one experience I'll tell you about. So I was going to take this train from Mission and take it all the way back down to Vancouver. I got there at the wrong time. There was a mistake in the schedule. So I thought that the train was supposed to leave Mission at 6, when in actuality, the last train was coming in at 6, and there wasn't going to be any trains till the next day. So when I found that out, I was like, oh my God, because when you're on the train, you can relax for, an hour or whatever and just chill out and not have to worry about anything. You're warm, you're safe. So what I did was I went across the road to this restaurant. I got myself some food. I got a salad, ate my salad, and then with nowhere to go and no specific place to be. So basically what I did was I just walked around this area of town I was in. Anyways, so I don't want to just sit around here till morning. So I decided to walk. And so I walked down this strip of road for probably an hour, and I eventually hit a diner, and I was like, I might have a couple dollars on my debit card. So I'm just going to see if I can get a coffee. I go inside and I sit down, and the waitress comes over and she's like, what can I get you? And I was like, before I get anything, can you just run my debit card for one coffee? I don't know how much I have, but can you run it just to see if I have enough? She's like, well, I can just give you the coffee for free. I was like, okay, thank you. So I had my coffee. I offered to leave a tip, and she's like, just go, don't worry about it. So I get on my way, and I'm just walking around this area by the diner. And it's a weird feeling, to be out in the world, free, and no places to be, no people to report to. And to be honest, that was mostly by choice. I was just having me time on the streets in the city. But I did learn a lot. So anyways, let's get on with the story. So eventually I turned down this highway, and there was this mosque down the road, and I was trying to look for it, and I was like kind of going in circles trying to find it. And then at one point I was able to fucking see the mosque, but I couldn't figure out for the life of me how to get there. Eventually I did get to the mosque, but I was too scared to go in, so I didn't go and like see what was up. What I did though was I went across the road to the gas station. And so at this gas station, I met this homeless guy there. And he asked me, what I'm doing out there. I give a little like I would tell people I chose to be homeless because I didn't want people to have unnecessary empathy, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want people to be like, oh my God, what is this 18-year-old brown kid doing on the streets? What the hell? Like I wanted to be clear, like I chose to do this. If you're wondering why I chose to be homeless, like it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go out to be homeless, but it was kind of just like a lack of preparation and, a young 18-year-old wanting to fucking go experience the city. That's literally the reason why this all started. But I had some good experiences and, reality eventually hits you in the face. Let's move on. So he asked me what I'm doing. I give him my little explanation and he's like, are you hungry? Do you want a coffee? And I'm like, yeah, like if you don't mind. And so he goes inside, gets me a large coffee, and he gives me this sandwich. And so we sit down and he gives me some cigarettes. We're talking and he tells me a story. Tells me a few stories actually. So the first story goes, well, actually, let me say this. I told him, because I am a spiritual healer and a spiritual teacher. So the universe sends me on my journey, and along that journey, I find people who need help. And these people that I meet are people who I can give, some words of advice to. And so he wanted to know about this psychedelic trip he had and how reality breaking it was for him. So the story went that this one night he had a dream. He was hanging out with his friends. They went to this guy was like, not to sound crass, I think the word is, but this guy was old. Like when he was a teenager, they still had the drive-in movie theaters. And that was like, I guess, a regular thing people did. So him and his friends in this dream went to the drive-in theater. And at one point during their movie theater trip, they were sitting in the car, right? He was in the passenger side. And so this guy walks up to the window and he says something. And then this guy in this dream says something back to him. So then however long later, him and his friends are doing psychedelics, the mushrooms. And so they go to the drive-in movie theater and him and his friends are all tripping. And this guy is starting to realize that he is experiencing and living out exactly what was happening in the dream he had previous to this experience in real life. So he was telling his friends, like, yo guys, we are living my effing dream right now. And his friends were like laughing at him or laughing it off. And he'd be like, no, like, and so what he was doing was he would be like, this is about to happen. And it would happen. And then he kept doing that. And eventually his friends were convinced that he was able to predict the future. So he gets to the part where in real life, he's sitting in the passenger seat in the car and this guy walks up to the window and he says the thing that he said in the dream. And he said that when that guy said it, he tried his hardest with his free will to not say exactly what he had said previously in the dream. And he said he blacked out, he came to, and it just blurted out of his mouth. He couldn't control it. And he asked me, is destiny real? And that's a heavy-hitting question to be asked and be put on the spot. Answer this heavy-hitting question, is destiny real? Do we really have free will? So my answer to that question was, I believe that certain things in life are destined to happen, but it's up to us to decide how we get there. And I was hoping that was satisfying enough. I also said, it sounds like your guides, your spirit guides, or the universe wanted to show you that there is something deeper to life than what meets the eye. And this dream and psychedelic sequence of events was a way to show you something that you wouldn't normally see. So he went on to tell me about his teenage years and why he doesn't wear poppy on Remembrance Day. So the story goes, when he was, 15, he was a troublemaker as a teen, and he was in a tuberculosis center. So he was quarantined at a tuberculosis hospital. And tuberculosis, I believe, if I remember correctly, is a pretty viral, like easily transmittable disease. And so that's why you would get quarantined at these hospitals. And he was causing so much trouble that the nurses there decided to pair him up with a buddy. And that buddy was a veteran. So this veteran would tell him stories about the war. He wouldn't go into too much, graphic and violent detail, but he would tell him stories. And I believe Remembrance Day had come around, and he asked him, this guy asked the veteran why he wasn't wearing a poppy, and he tells him, I don't wear a poppy so that people will ask me why, so that then I can say, I was nowhere near Flanders Field, and there were so many other forgotten soldiers who were never in or near Flanders Field who died. And so he was making a point and a statement to remember the people that we don't remember on Remembrance Day, right? And that really put things into perspective for me. The country that we live in today, Canada, if you're listening in Canada, or in any of the Western countries, was given to us on a silver platter, fought for in blood, sweat, and tears, and built from the lives of people who served in these world wars. And it gave me a deep gratitude for this country, even at being Indigenous myself. I don't agree with a lot of the colonization aspects of modern society and culture that we still see today, but I can still have that gratitude for this country, Canada, and have a deeper understanding and respect for how we got here and how we're still standing as a country. So his third story was on why he was homeless in the first place. And he said part of the reason was he was married to this girl, or this woman, and she had these young kids, babies, when they got into this relationship. And so when they got together, he had decided that he would raise these kids as if they were his own. Eventually, down the line, though, they had broken up, and he actually owned the house that they lived in. But he decided to give this house to his former partner and his former kids. The other reason is somehow a bit more tragic, and it goes, his brother was an addict, was addicted to drugs. And for years, his brother, was on and off the streets, addicted. And he got to a point where he got sober and clean. And he had gone to a treatment center. And when he came out, he was telling everybody he's clean and sober. He was so excited and so happy until this one night he relapsed. And this night that he relapsed, his brother was maybe 15 feet away in another room. And his brother had overdosed and died in that room, just maybe 15 feet away. The other reason why he had decided to be on the streets was to get to know the mind space, the head space that his brother was in. He wanted to know why his brother was the way he was. Why did he do drugs? Why was he constantly on the streets? And I think in a way it was almost a punishment for himself for not being able to help his brother in his most desperate time of need, was being on the streets. So he finishes up his stories, and he asks if I want another coffee, and I'm like, I'm okay. He gives me a jacket. He offered me his change. I said no, but he offered me a jacket, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take your jacket. So he gives me the jacket, and I put it on, and he goes off into the night, wherever he goes. Before he left, though, I told him that his brother would want him to get off the streets, start living a life that you're proud of. That's what your brother would really want for you, not for you to be on the streets, cold and lonely and suffering. So this guy goes off, and I'm wearing this jacket. And I noticed that the left side of it is pretty, there's some weight to it. So I'm like, what is going on? So I go into the pocket and there's nothing there. I unzip the coat and I go and I feel inside and there's an inside pocket. And this guy gave me literally a handful of change because I refused to take his change because I didn't want to take the rest of his money. So he, I guess, had the change in the jacket pocket and gave it to me. So I bought myself another coffee. I think he even gave me a pack of smokes, and I got my coffee. There was another homeless guy who was obviously pretty high on something, and I had gotten my coffee and he wanted, I forget, we did a trade. Like he wanted my coffee for something. Or no, I know what it was. He had bought a coffee and he wanted the money now. He didn't want the coffee anymore. He wanted money. So when I went to go buy a coffee, he was like, "Do you want to just buy this coffee from me?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I gave this other homeless guy all the change from the jacket for the coffee. Like that's what I mean when people like people who have nothing oftentimes are more willing to give you whatever they got so that you suffer less. Anyways, so morning comes around. It's about, 4 or 5 in the morning. It's getting bright out. And I'm like, I should probably figure out what I'm going to do. I was like hoping someone would offer me a ride outside the gas station. So I sat outside the gas station for a bit. And then I'm like, no one's going to stop and help and give me a ride to downtown Vancouver from Mission. So decided to let's go on a walk. So I went on a walk around the broader area that I was in. And, I'm just walking and I get up this tiny hill in this parking lot and I look to the right and I see this angel number. It's an address for like on this coffee shop. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's a sign. So I go inside the coffee shop. I have a little bit of change left and I'm like, how much is your water? Like, I need some water. Like, I'm literally like so dehydrated. Like, you can hear it in my voice. And the water bottle was like $4, which is like ridiculous. Homeless or not, water should be next, if not to free. Like free, if not, a dollar. Anyways, I was like, I only have this much change. I was like too tired to count it. And she's like, well, you can get a cup of water for free. I was like, I'll do that. So she gets me my cup of water and I sit down and I'm just like, oh, like just exhausted. And I obviously look like disheveled or something, like pretty like worn, they're warned or whatever. Anyways, this barista girl comes over and she's like, are you okay? I'm like, told her what happened. Like, I was like, I missed the train last night. I'm homeless right now. I stayed at the gas station and now I'm here. I'm just like super thirsty. And she's like, well, what train were you trying to catch? I was like, I think it was the Sunset or the Sun. It was like some train that goes from Mission to fucking waterfront to downtown Vancouver. And she looks it up and she's like, well, there's one in 15 minutes, like we gotta go. And I'm like, okay. So this mid shift is like takes me back to the train station, pays for my ticket, which was like $15. I think she even gave me some no, I don't know if she gave me money or not, but she paid for my ticket I know for sure. But on the way there, she was saying that she was also homeless when she had first arrived to the mainland. She was from Salt Spring Island, which is an island just off of Vancouver Island. So that was a weird synchronicity. And she said that I had that same look in my eyes that she had when she first arrived. And that's why she decided to help me. She even offered to let me stay at her place and to get me a job at the coffee shop, which was really cool and nice of her. But I was set, like my heart still is, but my heart was set in downtown Vancouver. That's where my thing was. That's where I wanted to be. That's where all the fun is happening. And so that's where I went off to. At this point, I was so exhausted on the train that I couldn't hold myself up. I would doze off and like kind of like fall forward and then like shock myself and then like wake up and like I probably looked like I was on fentanyl. Like to be pretty blunt, I looked like I was like nodding off on drugs. Anyways, the train ride, the view was beautiful. And that's another thing that I learned was how beautiful life can be even when you have nothing. I learned how happiness, like my happiness no longer is attached to do I have the nice, like I like luxury, I like nice things, I like, going shopping, but my self-worth and my self-image is no longer attached to the things I own. And when I got into downtown Vancouver, I was like, I am sick and tired of hauling this fucking suitcase around. I need to, shed some weight. And so what I did was I went into an alleyway. I took out all of my important stuff, put it in a bag, and then I ditched whatever else I didn't need along with the suitcase in this alleyway. That was a game changer because, walking around with a suitcase is fine until it's every day all the time. And then it gets to be a hassle. And then it restricts your movement in certain places you can go just out of like the unnecessary baggage. Like I literally let go of that baggage and I let go a lot of like, that mental baggage of like, oh my God, do I have the new shoes and the new outfit? Like it, because when you're focused purely on survival, what you're gonna eat next, and staying safe and not getting murked on the road, what you have in your wallet doesn't really. I mean, well, you obviously want some money in your wallet, but, do I have the Gucci or the Louis becomes way less fucking important than do I have enough money to eat, right? So when I got to downtown, I think I walked around for a bit, but I ended up at a 7-Eleven on Davie Street. Outside of this 7-Eleven, there was this guy in a wheelchair due to, starvation. I don't know if he was on drugs previous to this, but he easily could have just been a disabled man in a wheelchair sitting outside in the cold on Davie Street. And one of the most expensive cities in the motherfucking world to live. We have a man who's, looked to be late 50s, maybe early 60s in the wheelchair. And this was a major shift in my 18-year-old perspective of the world. It was very daunting to see Mercedes Benzes going by and people going to the bar, and, people didn't even really care to look at him. It's not even that they didn't care, it's just they didn't notice. It was a normal occurrence. It wasn't something that registered to them. It was sad. In the most pure definition of the word, it was fucking sad to see how we, failed our elders. No old person who over 50 years old should be on the fucking streets. We make enough money in this economy to fucking feed and house everybody. It's really not that, it's expensive. But if we cut out the fucking bullshit and the government and the community and people listening, we could solve a lot of these issues facing homeless people. And it's not just homeless people that these affect. You are more likely to be on the streets in the next month than you are to ever touch $1 million. And $1 million is not a lot of money. $1 million can get you a house and a car, maybe. And you might have 50 grand left to spend on whatever. But back to the point, it was very sad to see. So what I did was I took the jacket that I got from the other homeless guy and I wrapped it around this homeless guy. I was like, hey, I am putting a jacket around you, okay? Because he was like damn near unconscious, So I go inside the 7-Eleven. I don't know. No, I spent all of my money in Mission on dinner when I missed the train. So I didn't have any money, but I went into the 7-Eleven because it was warm. Like, if you ever end up homeless, go to and you don't know where to go to a 7-Eleven. It's 24 hours. It's bright there. There's lights. Maybe someone will buy you a snack, but it's probably any 24-hour convenience store that's like a good place to go for the night. Like not every 7-Eleven's going to let you stay overnight, but it's a good place to be around if you need an immediate safe place, right? While you kind of figure out your next moves. So anyways, I go in, I sit down because, fucking hang out, whatever, in the 7-Eleven. And this other homeless guy had got a bunch of noodle bowls, and he was like, "Do you want one?" And I'm like, hell yeah, I do." So he gives me a noodle bowl, and I'm eating my noodles and whatever. I took a video. I actually took a video of this homeless guy, download it from my Facebook, and post it to my Substack. So after you're done listening, you can head over there and check out the video of this homeless guy on Davie Street. And you literally see in this video this homeless guy, in the cold, and there's people just walking by like it's nothing. And the reason why I recorded was not for clout, but it was something. It was something that needs to be seen by the world. And having $1 million high rises and apartments next to some of the biggest, most dense population of people without homes and housing and adequate income and food and water is a very disgusting stain on Canada's and Vancouver's legacy. Is this something that we want to be remembered by a few generations from now, the generation that let so many people end up homeless? Do we want to be known as the people who walked by that starving guy, the guy that could have died right there and no one would have known until it was, way too late? And oftentimes, homeless people who do die, if they don't have ID on them, if there's not adequate records of them, if no one can identify them, then no one to their final resting place, wherever that may be, nameless. So when I was leaving, I saw this lady go and, well, she came into 7-Eleven, she bought a bunch of chips and snacks and stuff, and she actually went outside and gave this guy who was in the wheelchair the food. And of course he woke up for the damn food. I would have too. Like, he woke up for the food. He was good. He was chilling. As chill as you could be in that situation. And that was a blessing to be a witness to that, and a blessing from that lady who gave that to that guy. It was a blessing to witness the coldness of people towards the less fortunate, and then to see someone who had the resources at their disposal and used them in a meaningful way. That warmed my heart. I could almost cry right now thinking of that. So, why do people become homeless? What is the reason? The answer is there are many reasons. There isn't just one way someone becomes homeless. And this is what I'm about to say is what I meant when I said you're more close to being homeless than you are to seeing $1 million. There's people that I met on the streets that weren't drug addicts, that did have homes. They weren't all lazy bums that people often associate with these human beings who are less fortunate. Some people even just chose to be out on the streets. Some struggled with physical disabilities. I met this one guy outside of that same A&W, actually the same night that my phone got stolen. I don't know where he got his money from, but he was pretty ballin'. He came inside the A&W and he bought like 15 fucking teen burger meals. He did it all up for him and his friends who were sleeping. Like, two of his friends, or I don't know if he knew them, but there was these two homeless people made themselves a bed with blankets just outside the 7-Eleven right next to the fucking street. Like, how horrible of a situation to be in. Imagine that is your life. Take a second and picture yourself going outside your house right now with your blankets and making a bed on the sidewalk and just going to bed right then and there. It's not fucking comfortable. It's not cozy. It's not okay that people are living like this. So what this guy did, he didn't have a leg. He was waiting at a bus stop, and I guess he was too close to the edge, or the bus had come up over onto the sidewalk and it crushed his fucking leg. So this guy was wheelchair bound, half a fucking leg missing. And he still had the heart to care and support the people around him. That guy lost more than any billionaire or millionaire will ever lose in their lifetime. And he has probably done more for the less fortunate. He has probably done more for the less fortunate than the most fortunate has, Like, think about that. You don't have a leg. I don't know how he got his money, but at 2 a.m, you're fucking having a feast with your other homeless buddies. And I ended up getting a burger. This lady, I woke because when I woke up and my phone was gone, I was like, panicking. And this lady who was homeless was sitting. She was pretty put, like she looked pretty put together, but she was obviously homeless and like on drugs or whatever. But I was like, "Hey, like, did you notice anyone steal my phone?" Because to be honest, like, what, like, I was in the grieving process when I lost my phone, which sounds really pathetic because it kind of is. But I was in the grieving process, like negotiating, and then like I was going through the 5 stages of grief. I was like, because the phone's fucking gone. You were asleep, dumbass. So she's like, "No," but she felt bad for me, so she's like, "How old are you?" I was like, "I'm 18." She's like, "You're a baby," which is, like, something I heard a lot when I met new people and they asked me my age, and they're like, "You're a baby." I was like, I'm on the fucking streets. What kinda I mean, sorry, I just thought of Gabby Hanna. There's homeless babies on the streets. Like, maybe there are. Well, some people who don't want the babies throw their babies in dumpsters. And that's a dark thought. Moving on. So I hung out with her for a bit and she was like drawing on herself. Like I don't remember specifically what it was. It looked kind of abstract. It was pretty cool, I will say. But she had a bottle of wine in her bag. She's like, do you drink? Do you want some wine?" And I'm like, "Hell fucking yeah, I need some wine right now." She's like, "Go get an A&W cup." And I was like, "Okay." So I grabbed the A&W cup and she poured me some wine and like like finished the bottle. And then we went outside for a smoke and then got burgers from that guy without a wheelchair. And she actually ended up giving me her burger. And if that lady wasn't there, like, I honestly don't know what I would have done, because even just having that support from a stranger, that support of that A&W cup of wine and the cigarette and the understanding, and like that was enough to get me through the night. So as we are hanging out, this other guy comes in to the A&W and hangs out with us and sits with us. And he's talking about how like different ways to get money. And he's like, "Well, yeah, you can sign up for the like a bank account and you'll get like they'll deposit you, X amount of dollars for opening the account, and you can go through this website and order stuff and just never pay them back, and then they'll sell your debt and like whatever." And I'm like listening because it's interesting, but also like, to be frank, another homeless person giving me advice on how to do something regarding finances is not the most reputable source, if I do say so myself, as a former homeless person, I might add. So also, like, looking back on that night, like, very likely could have been those two people who stole my phone and then figured I was pretty cool to chill with, but didn't want to give me my phone back, because in the morning when we left the A&W, me and this guy went to the YMCA, and he's like, "Do you want me to like?" We were supposed to go to the library to do something, but oh yeah, we were trying to figure out my ID situation because my phone case was my wallet. So when they stole my phone, they stole fucking everything, right? So he was going to help me figure that out. And so we went to the YMCA and I stupidly gave him my bag of stuff to go put in his locker to go keep it safe, quote unquote safe. Never fucking saw this. Well, he comes back out and then we take a bus down near English Bay, and he starts smoking up with his friend, and I'm like, I don't really want to be around this right now because I had just recently gotten sober during that time period from smoking a certain substance, and which is like, this is not the point of the story, so I'm not going to get into like too much detail right now. So I had left, right? And went on my way. We were going to meet at the library in downtown Vancouver. Never saw this guy again. I went to the YMCA later, and they were like, "We can't go look through all the fucking lockers for you, bud." And I was like, "Oh my god." And I think there was pictures of my dad who had passed earlier in that year in March, and like it was like I can get those photos again. So like it wasn't anything that really mattered. Like in the most like just like I didn't need those to survive, and like I couldn't eat anything in there or spend anything using whatever was in there, right? So luckily had met this guy on a certain dating app, and he was nice enough and trustworthy enough for me to leave my birth certificate at his place because he knew my situation, right? So he was like, I have an idea. If you feel comfortable, you can leave like your important stuff here. So if you ever, well, yeah, because I think I had went to his apartment because I had like remembered, and I was like, hey, it's Kyle. Kind of got my phone stolen or whatever. I had somehow got in contact with him, and he's like, okay, well, good thing I have your birth certificate. So he kind of knew, like, I was able, like, this was prior. He's like, give me like the birth certificate. So if anything goes down, you know it's safe and you can go get some new IDs. So that's exactly what I did. But it took a while for me to like get to getting the IDs, which was a process in and of itself. So eventually, I think it was in September or something, there's a place called the Kettle Society in East Vancouver. And they kind of specialize. They have a bunch of different resources for homeless people, but one of the main things they do is help people get their IDs again. And so I brought in my birth certificate, and it was one of those paper ones, not the new ones. I had the paper version, and like the lettering, like it was so old that like the lettering was coming off. And thankfully, I was able to give them enough information about me and like my parents and stuff, and like send it off that the government of BC was able to confirm like I am Kyle Antoine. I'm not some random brown kid trying to take Kyle Antoine's identity. And so I was able to get my IDs that way, but it was a process. Like the Kettle Society made it an easier process, but it was still like a very long one. Also, when you're 18, it's not like I could have gotten like my first night there. I met these two. I was on Davie Street and I was doing a little walk around, and I ended up near a church just off of Davie Street. I think it's actually like 666 something. And I remember that because I'm like, church and the devil's number, that's a weird combo. Anyway, so my first night there, I go to this church off of Davie Street, and I meet these two people. I think they were a couple, and I'm like telling them my situation. I was like, yeah, like I just got to Vancouver, and I don't really got anywhere to go. Like blah 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 blah. Like the Sandman. I tried to go to the Sandman, but I don't think I had. I came to Vancouver with about $500, and I had spent some of it already, so like I didn't have quite enough for a room. And anyway, so I told them that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go on my way. There was an event going on at the main square on Davie Street, like with like the rainbow sidewalks, if you know. And so I just sat outside the Starbucks. I had bought sage in Horseshoe Bay earlier in the day, so I was just burning my sage. And I remember this lady was walking by, and she's like, "Are you burning sage?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "That's dope." And I was like, "Thank you, I know." So I'm just sitting there, right? And these two people who I was just talking with come up to me, and they're like, "Hey, like we really want to help you out. We want to get you a hotel. We want to set you up in a hotel for tonight." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like yeah, thank you." And at this point, I was still pretty like, I guess the word would be ungrateful, and what's not humble, not super humble, okay? Being homeless will humble you in ways that I don't know. But the reason why I say that is because we went to the Sandman, and I was like, if you guys like I can put up this much money. If you guys can pay the difference, that'll be perfect. Like you don't gotta pay the whole thing. And they're like, okay. So we go back to the Sandman, and the rooms are fully booked out by that point. So they're calling around to all these hotels, and everyone's booked and booked and booked. And we probably could have found a cheaper, not nicer hotel in the area or something. But they called the Fairmont, and the Fairmont had some rooms available, and for some reason it was cheaper for the night at the Fairmont than it was at the fucking Sandman. I was like, okay. I was like, I want to get up in the sand, not in the sand. I want to get up in Fairmont, and so I basically like this. So there was a lady and a guy, and the guy was like, we don't have that much money to like we can't spend all our money on this guy for a hotel room. And the lady like insisted, or like, no, we're gonna help this guy and get a hotel room. And so we were walking to the Fairmont, and I forget what happened and why, but we ended up like separating from each. Like what I mean is, we said our goodbyes. They're like, "Do you got it?" Because I had enough money for the hotel room, right? They're like, "Do you got it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And they were like, okay, we're going to meet you in the lobby tomorrow morning and take you for breakfast. So be in the lobby. And I'm like, okay. So that was the plan. I go to the lobby of the Fairmont. And I think it was Fairmont. It might have been a different luxury hotel. I think it was the Fairmont, though. It was something. Back to the story. So I get to the lobby and I go to the front desk and I'm like, hi, can I get a room for one? Like, they're like, do you got a reservation? And I'm like, no, I just want a room. They're like, okay, we just need your credit card and ID. And at this point, I was 18. I didn't have a credit card, so I was like, I'm 18. I don't have a credit card. I can't get one till I'm 19. I have cash though. I'll pay you in cash. And they're like, I'm sorry, but like, we can't even give you a hotel room because you're 18. And I'm like defeated. I'm like, oh my god. I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? So I did what I so what I did was I took a taxi to Davie Street and I went to like this burrito place or whatever. And I sat on these colorful benches and I just sat there reading. It was a book of Bible stories. Like it wasn't the Bible, it was like just the stories. And I think they were kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it was literally like a book of the Bible stories, right? So I got some food. I got some I think don't flame me, but Doritos, like the Mexican pop or whatever that's like colorful. I got a few bottles of those. I got my food. I didn't finish the burrito though. And I sat outside. I left my suitcase inside of the restaurant. And so, I'm just sitting out there having my Doritos, enjoying the nightlife, enjoying the nightlife. And I start reading my Bible stories because I bought it from the thrift store before I had left for like some spiritual guidance when I needed it. So I was reading the stories and there was a story of Jesus and his disciples out in the forest and they're like hanging out in the forest for some reason. One of the disciples, like, as time went on in the forest, the disciples started getting tired, right? And so Jesus would tell them, just stay awake one more hour, just one more hour. And eventually all the disciples fell asleep and Jesus was awake. Um, a group of thieves came and robbed everybody. It's like, Jesus, you were the lookout man. I don't know. But so I just, like, I don't even know. Like, that's the one story that stuck out that I remember. I don't, like, I was just reading it and, like, what's going on and, like, enjoying myself. And eventually, like, as I'm reading the Bible stories, I get a tap on like, a group of people sit behind me and someone taps me on the shoulder and they're like, what are you reading? And I'm like, I'm reading the Bible. And they thought I was joking. And I'm like, no, like, look, I'm actually reading the Bible. And they're like, oh, like, what are you doing out here? And I tell them, like, I tried getting into a hotel and blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't get into the hotel because I'm 18. And now I'm stuck here and whatever. This is my first night here. And he's like, okay, well, I have to, like, we talked for a bit. And then him and his friends were going to go, like, bar hopping or whatever. He's like, I gotta go, but if I when I come back here later and you're still here, I'll help you find somewhere to go. And I'm like, okay. So I just, kind of, I sat in the same spot. Like I think I might have seen him probably around like 10 or 11, maybe even 9. Regardless, I waited there for hours. I honestly didn't really expect him to come back, to be honest, but I kept remembering the Jesus story, just like, to stay awake one more hour. So I would stay awake for like one more hour, and because I didn't want the thieves to come and rob me, right? So it gets to around 2 o'clock. My phone's dying at this point. Like my phone's like damn near dead, if not already dead by that point. It gets around 2, let's say 2 a.m. And he comes back. He's like, hey, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, I got a couple options for you, okay? And I'm like, okay, let's hear them. So the first option is my friend owns a hostel. I can call him up and see if we can like set you up there. It'll cost maybe like $100 a night, which was honestly like at the time I was like, I don't want to spend $100, but like honestly, like at a hostel, like somewhere to stay at night beats like if you can afford it. Like that was definitely like a really good option. And he's like, and if you don't want to do that, you can, he's like, in the least weirdest way possible, you can come back to my house and spend the night there. And I was like, I want to go to your house. He's like, okay, I'll call the Uber. And like, as we're talking, I'm like, my phone's dead. I had bought in the SIM card and I was gonna put it in my phone, but my phone that I had gotten was, like, didn't have the SIM card tray, and like, I didn't know why, like, the SIM card wouldn't go in. And so, like, as we're talking, this girl is walking past and stops, and, like, I was like, "I need to charge my phone, and, like, I need to put the SIM card in." So, like, these 2 people, the guy whose house I was going to, and this girl went to go find somewhere to, like, plug my phone in, and so they went to go plug my phone in and charge it up a bit. So while I'm waiting, there is this guy that's walking down the road. He's, like, all done up for the club. Like, I think it, like, I remember his stomach was showing. He looked he looked pretty good for, like, the club or whatever. So we get to talking, and he starts telling me about his brother who had recently passed away, and his brother had I think he got, like, killed. I don't even like, I don't yeah, I think his brother had gotten killed, and so I gave him a message from his brother. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was kinda just a message of, living your best life for your brother and, like, honoring him in that way. Anyways, so the other t so, like, me and this guy were, like, we were talking probably for, like, 10 minutes, and then I'm like, "Wait a second, where is my phone?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, like, did they just steal my phone?" I was like, "Oh my god." And so I'm, like, looking around, and this guy, like, goes and finds them, and they come back out, and they're like, "We wouldn't steal your phone, like, we don't have any use for it." I'm like, "Okay, like, thanks for not stealing my phone." And so, me and this guy get the Uber back to his place. It was in West Vancouver, and but yeah, he asked me about, like, my drug like, if I did any drugs, and I was like, "Yeah, like, I have in, like, the past, like, right now, I'm completely sober." And he was wanting to know, like, what I did, but I didn't feel comfortable telling him, so I didn't. And so we get to his place, and just a little side note, when he was telling me, like, the second option of going back, he was like, "We'll literally be on opposite ends of the house." And I was like, "Okay." So we get to his house. It was, like, this really nice, like, house. Like, it was, like, a really nice house. And we get inside, and he shows me the room, and he sets it up and everything. And it was, like, the room that he was staying in and the room I was staying in, like, we're literally on opposite ends of the house. But anyways, he's like, "In the morning, if you wanna shower, the bathroom's right there, like, you don't need to, like, wait or ask, like, you can just, go take a shower in the morning when you're ready, and then I'll take you to, like, somewhere, like, nearby for you to go to." I was like, "Okay." And me and this guy ended up having, like, a heart to heart, and it was weird how, like, it was weird in the context of me not having a genuine heart to heart, especially with another man. I had never really had that before, and I remember him saying, like, "You can tell me anything, like, I'm a vault. Like, whatever you say, like, will not leave the vault. Like, people trust me with, like, people tell me things, and, like, I'll never say anything." And, like, I told him a bit about, like, what I was, like, going through emotionally, and, like, and it was a really pure and gentle and heartwarming experience for me, especially at that time. And to kind of put things into perspective, like, I got to Vancouver, no plan, no nothing, like, no idea of where I was going. Just the premise of I'll get to where I need to go. I'll end up, I don't know where I'm gonna be, who I'm gonna meet, but I'll know it when I see it. And, like, something took care of me during that time. Whenever I was down and out on my luck, it was almost like someone was sent to me to help pull me through that situation. Because if I didn't find the guy outside the gas station in Mission, I would have been cold. I would have, been miserable. And in the morning in Mission, if I didn't find that girl, I would have been stuck there for God knows how long. And there's a lot less resources in a smaller town than there is in the big city, right? The first night there was 3 people, the couple and the guy whose house I ended up staying at that night, who, were put on my path almost. Like, that's how it felt. Like, they were put in my path to help me, and they were willing and wanting to help, and that was something aside from my nan, and that's really it. And up until that point in my life, I never had anyone who, like, went out of their way to give me help in a meaningful way, right? So it was that was definitely like really fond memories I have of my time back in 2023 over there. So we have that heart to heart. I go to sleep and I was like, thank God, because by that point, I was like, I was ready to go take a fucking sleep. So I did. And I remember the window must have been open because I remember hearing the traffic and the city noise. And I was like, thank God I'm not out there right now. And thank God, thank fucking this guy. Um, for, being willing to fucking help me in my time of need. Because if it wasn't for him and those other and that couple, even though that didn't work out, but if it wasn't for those people, I would have, probably slept on Davie Street and had my shit stolen. So, anyways, I wake up in the morning, take my shower, kind of get my things together. And because I was 18, like I really wanted to drink. Or not because I was 18, but I'm young, I'm in the city, I like drinking, I want to get drunk. So I asked him to boot for me and he didn't want to, but he's like, I got like half a bottle of Bacardi you can have. And I'm like, that is perfect. So I took the Bacardi. He dropped me off at Park Royal, which is a big mall in West Vancouver. At this point, because I was able to sleep at this guy's house, I still had a few $100s left. So I got myself a new outfit, some new shoes. And I remember going into the bathroom in like one of the bathrooms in this mall. And I was just like taking shots in the bathroom. And then he had told me I didn't know about it, but he had told me that there was going to be a fireworks show in English Bay in downtown Vancouver. And so he's like, I might go to that, so I may see you there if you, end up going that way. And I'm like, okay. So after I was done in West Vancouver, I took the bus downtown and made my way towards English Bay. I ended up going to this really nice restaurant, as in like it was a cool restaurant. It wasn't like some super high end restaurant. It was in this like old like townhouse kind of building, and you walk up the stairs and they have this like old style bar, and they got like actual cushioned chairs and stuff for you to sit. So I got myself some avocado toast because I was feeling like, I don't know how I was feeling. I was feeling good, I guess. And I remember seeing this painting on the wall of a wolf, and the wall was covered in these paintings that you could buy. And I bought the painting and went on my way back towards English Bay. So, anyways, I got to English Bay eventually, and I was pretty drunk by this point, and I had run out of it was nice and bright out. There was a plane show, like a flying show of the plane before the fireworks, and so I just hung around English Bay for a bit while like waiting for the fireworks to start. And I was like, eventually like I want to drink some more, and I want to like hang out with some people. So I ended up finding this group of people later into the day, and they were drinking wine and stuff. And I was wearing a Karl Lagerfeld shirt. So when I met this group of people, I was like, yeah, my name's Kyle. And because like they were like, we were all pretty like tipsy or drunk or whatever. They kept calling me Carl because that was like what was on my shirt. And so I was just like, okay, I guess I'm Carl now. Anyways, the fireworks show was amazing. Had some fun. I ended up splitting ways with this group of people. I ended up giving the wolf painting to one of the guys there because I was like, here's a gift. I wish I would have kept it though. It would have been an awesome memory keepsake, but it is what it is. So now I'm in downtown Vancouver. I'm in the same situation again. I don't have anywhere to go. Don't know what I'm gonna do. So I end up going on the SkyTrain, and it was the SkyTrain headed to Richmond. And I, at the time, I didn't want people to know I didn't have anywhere to go. So I like made up a story or whatever, like I live in Surrey or whatever. Which is funny because I like live there now. But so what I did was this guy was like, you need to get off this one and on the next station, switch over. So I went back to downtown Vancouver. I got on a bus to nowhere because like I didn't know where I was going. Got on the bus, and then I met this, I think she was from Spain. And she's like, oh, like, what do you do? I was like, I'm a model. I actually did do like some modeling while I was there during that time. Check my Instagram at it's Kyle Antoine. Shameless plug on my own podcast. Anyways, so I was talking with this Spanish girl on the bus, and then I was speaking with this homeless guy. I'm pretty sure it was the other way around. I spoke with the homeless guy first, and then I was speaking with the Spanish girl. But this homeless guy offered for me to come stay with him at his tent at Queen Elizabeth Park, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. That's what I was thinking, but I was like, yeah, like maybe. And then I was speaking with a Spanish girl. I was like, that homeless guy is like kind of, and so she's like, you should get away from him. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I had like this like feeling to leave the bus at the next stop. So at the next stop, there was a 7-Eleven. I was like, perfect. I'm going to go in there. So I get off the bus real quick. I get inside real quick. And everything was fine. Like I was probably just a bit paranoid, which rightfully so. You don't want to go spend the night in a park with a homeless guy in his tent. That sounds like a recipe for, God knows what. No shade. So I end up staying the night in the 7-Eleven. Thankfully, the workers weren't like, get the hell out of here. They even like locked the door while I was inside, like let me stay in while they like cleaned up, which was nice. And so in the morning, I asked the clerk, I was like, is it safe to go outside? And they're like, yeah, this is New Westminster. Like you're like you're in a safe area, don't worry. I was like, okay. So like I walked down the road and I was taking my doxosin still, and it gives you low blood pressure. If you like that's what it lowers your blood pressure, and that kind of helps your anxiety. I believe that's how it works. So I was pretty winded and I was like, a bit hungover. Anyway, so I go to this Tim Hortons and I'm in there chilling, charging up my phone. And yeah, so that was like my actual first and second night there. I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but I want to refocus and talk a bit more of like less a bit less about actual stories and more about what it was like experiencing being like without a home base to go back to. So, like when you're on the streets, you don't have any friends to go to or people to talk to. Kind of just like the odd stranger, not like an odd stranger, but the odd stranger that you come across. Like it gets pretty lonely. I remember walking down the street one time and this was probably a few weeks into me being there, and I saw something that I thought was pretty funny, and like instinctively I went and like tapped to my right as if someone was there, like my sister or something, like to go tap them and be like, hey, like look at that. And I quickly realized I was, by myself and that I was alone. No one was around me, and that was partly due to like sleep deprivation. And I was like, wow, that's kind of sad. And I was there from like the last couple days of July 2023 to January 15th of 2024. So I had a decent amount of time being homeless. So like I can't imagine the people who've been on there for years, how lonely that must be for them, especially if they don't have family or they don't have contact with their family. But you also get quickly accustomed to living on the streets. You go into survival mode. So you get into survival mode probably within like the first week, like full survival mode. And by survival mode, I mean like your body and your mind are solely focused on keeping you alive. And so your main focuses are really food and water and finding somewhere warm to be when it's cold. It's progressive. So the longer like you're out on the streets, the more deep you are into that survival mode. And when I eventually went back to my nan's house on the 15th of January 2024, my feet were like I had a bunch of dry skin on my feet and they were cracking. Like my feet were pretty fucked up from constantly walking and being on the streets. Like I was pretty my feet were pretty worn, and those shoes that I had bought my first full day there, by the time I had left, they were completely black. Like you almost couldn't see the white anymore by the time when I like had went back on the 15th of January. and you're like also sleeping have like it took some time to get used to not being constantly on the lookout and constantly worrying, if I go to sleep now, am I going to be safe? Is my phone going to be safe? Is my wallet and my IDs going to be safe? It took some adjusting to being like, yeah, I am safe now. I'm not there. It's almost like the void. It feels like the void when you're on the streets. Like just a massive thing of nothingness is like eventually what it feels like. And, getting past that feeling when I would, close my eyes at night took some getting used to be like, hey, like I don't need to be aware. Like I can just, chill. And another thing is privacy. When you're on the streets and you don't have somewhere to go, like I took privacy for granted. Having your own house and your own space for you to come to when the world gets too loud or you just need time to yourself. You don't got that. Like, no, like if you're homeless, you don't have privacy. You're constantly exposed to people and the elements. There's no true time to take for yourself. But like I said earlier in this episode, there were some pretty beautiful and calm and peaceful moments that I had, and one of them was in the middle of August. At some point, I was in English Bay, and my back, like I was leaning on a tree, just looking at the sunset across the ocean, and I think that was probably one of the most peaceful and serene moments that I've ever experienced in my entire life. And at that point, that wasn't like hard to beat, but even now looking back, just sitting there, the pink and the orange and the yellow, and there's people enjoying themselves at the park as well. Like I was so peaceful. I felt so peaceful that I almost fell asleep there. And then I'm like, Kyle, we got to get up. We can't get our shit stolen again. or like, So I ended up going into finding a nice bush area in Stanley Park where like it wasn't like too like it wasn't deep into the forest. Like I think I was right next to a golf course or something. And I had my little bag and my like and it was cold. Like the nights, it's not just exhausting and like it's also cold, and it's a cold that not many people experience nowadays. Well, many people do experience it, but my point being, like, it's the kind of cold that you feel in your core and in your bones that you can't get rid of. So I fell asleep in this bush. It was honestly one of like the best sleeps I've had, to be honest. Like it was actually like a really good sleep. And woke up, everything was fine. Got out of getting out of the bush is awkward, but once you're in the bush, it's good. So, anyways, I remember getting on the bus and I think I shook my head, like my hair, and a fucking like bug, like a beetle, like not like a scary beetle, like a green beetle kind of looking thing, like fell out of my hair, and I'm like, oh my god, like what the hell? I was like, hopefully no one saw that. Yeah, eventually it got to the point where I knew I I couldn't stay on the streets any longer. So this was nearing September. So I had spent basically like almost a full month just on the streets, and I had met this guy, and he had told me about this shelter for youth, and I had forgotten the name of it. And when I saw him again, I was like, "What was that? What was that place you said?" And he's like, "It's called Covenant House." I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." And I had my laptop with me, and I went to an A&W by Canada Place, and I was on my laptop, like trying to figure out where this was, and I got the location, and the worker there was like, "Hey, I don't." Oh, excuse me. She was like, "Hey, I don't mind you being here, but we're doing shift change at 12, and the people who are coming in are likely going to kick you out, so you might want to like get yourself together and go." I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I was like, "Okay, last night of being on the street, then we're heading to Covenant House to go get some help." What I was doing at A&W was I was like I at that point in my life really struggled with asking for help and knowing when I needed help. So I was literally watching like TED Talks on how to ask for help. And so this is what it said, the basic rundown. It said, you need to be direct. This is my issue and this is what I need help with. You need to not apologize for asking. And that's like what I remember from it. You need to be direct. This is what I need help with. Please help. So I locked that information in and I left. And there's a walkway from Canada Place. It goes all the way to Stanley Park. But I went and found a bush somewhere, and I had like my laptop bag, and I found this bush, and I like got kind of settled in to the bush, and I heard this guy walking around me, and it was like another homeless person, and I'm like, I'm about to get robbed. So I was so tired, but I like forced myself up, and I walked out of the bush, and I went and found another place to go sleep. And so I walked up these stairs, and I found this hedge by a fountain, and I got in between the brick wall and the hedge, and I got comfortable and laid down there. And it was good because it blocked the wind and no one could really like you couldn't see me unless you like went out of your way to look behind the bush. So I felt pretty safe there. So I let myself go into deep sleep. And like it's like almost 2. No, it's 2:30. I've been here out for a while, but this is an important podcast that I need and want to record. So I go to sleep and I'm like on my knees and like I'm trying to like my brain's slowly waking up and then I'm like fully awake, but like my eyes aren't like awake yet, like or they're not like on. So I'm like trying to like force myself awake. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought I was getting like attacked or something. And as I'm coming to, I I begin to feel myself getting sprayed in the face, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" And so when I finally can see, I realize the sprinklers turned on, and I was getting sprayed in the face, and I guess the sprinklers turned on while I was asleep, started spraying me. My body or whatever, like, got up on its own, and then I woke up, and I was getting sprayed in the face, and I'm like, "Oh my fucking god, this cannot get any worse." And I gotta, like, get up and leave the hedge, and I'm stuck there, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I can barely see because 'cause I'm getting sprayed in the eyes with water, and I realize my fucking my laptop bag's strap, um, is hooked around a fucking tiny branch, and I'm like, "Oh my god." Oh, yeah, I also had a little duffel bag with, like, some clothes and stuff in it as well. And so I eventually get it unhooked. Like, I had to, like, concentrate and get it unhooked because I tried yanking it and it just did not budge. So I had to, like, concentrate and like, carefully unwrap it and then leave the fucking hedge. And I'm like, "Great. Now I'm wide awake, drenched and cold, and it's really early in the morning. It's bright out, but it's really early in the morning. Like Vancouver's quiet. No one's really out, which is that's another thing you get to experience. Like you get to see the world and for me, Metro Vancouver in a way that I mean, it's a city, so many people have probably seen it at night, but like seeing something in a state that it's not that you don't typically see it in is pretty cool, you know? So anyway, so I quickly changed into warm clothing, which was like yeah, it felt like God's hug when I took off the wet clothes and stuff and put on like the warm fucking dry clothes. And I think I even like quickly like I had a razor, so I dipped it in the puddle, which I don't recommend. Not a good tip. Don't dip like if don't dip your razor in a puddle and shave, but that's what I did. And then I got walking. So I ended up at English Bay again, trying to find Covenant House because I had passed it before, but it didn't like register to me like it wasn't like an important thing at that point. So like it was just kind of like another building or whatever. So I eventually get my direction of where I'm going, and I walk down this road, and then I eventually end up at Covenant House, and I like open the door, and I get to the front desk, and I'm like, my name's Kyle Antoine. I need help. I'm homeless. And like, blah, 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 blah. Like, I need help. And the lady was like, "Yeah, okay, like, are you, like, you can access it's called CSS, I believe. And so, like, if you aren't in like their shelter program, you go there to like, you can have your dinner, hang out there. I think they even got like Xboxes and stuff that you can play over there, and you can do laundry and shower there. And then they got like a clothing room that you can like go and get like clothing from. They open at 8. It was probably like 6 or 7, so I had like an hour. I think it was 7, but like there was some time until it opened, right? So I was like, I think I got like an apple and a muffin or something, maybe some coffee. But anyways, I walked down the road to this park, beautiful park. That's just down the road, and I hung out there for a bit, and then I got around start heading to back to Covenant House. And so I make my way there, and oh my goodness, they let me in. You're supposed to give them like any weapons you have, and I would I got like these iron nails that were slightly bent in case I needed to defend myself. Like, so yeah. And I eventually like get into the main part after they like got my ID, and I don't remember exactly what I used to get in. I think given my circumstances, they were able to let me in anyways without the IDs, because I don't think because by that point my IDs would have still been like in the fucking wind. But anyways, I get in there, I shower and stuff. I do laundry, shower, I have something to eat, and I kind of like start breaking down and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I can't go back out on the streets tonight. Like that was not an option for me. And like that's what I said to one of the workers there. And so she was calling around to different places, and she called this one place. I'm not gonna tell you like the specific location because it's meant to be. Well, it's a safe house, so I'm not gonna like divulge too much information regarding that. But I ended up going to the safe house for, oh my God, that was such a blessing getting into that safe house. But I was there for like 2.5 weeks or something in September. No, I would have been probably within the last week of August. And then I stayed about 2.5 weeks into September before a bed became available at Covenant House. So my plan was to go to the safe house temporarily to then go into Covenant House, because Covenant House, I think you can be there. Like, I don't know the exact minimum age you have to be, but you're allowed to stay up until you turn 25, I think it is. Like at 25, you age out. Covenant House does have programs for, I think they do, after you age out, but don't quote me on that. But I know, like, I think you can stay until you turn 25. So I was able to get into Covenant House, and yeah, basically like rat. It was like that song, like "Run fast for your mother, fast for your father, for your sister and your brother." Like, you know that song. That's how I felt on my way to Covenant House. So I took like the bus down to Covenant House, and got there, got checked in and stuff. And yeah, Covenant House, and not Safe House, but Covenant House really was a very useful support, because it was already exhausting enough in the summertime being on the streets. Like, I can't imagine being on the streets in the wintertime. Like, I was still like homeless or houseless in between houses, but I wasn't on the streets anymore. So that was, and it was right before the turning point of when it gets super fucking cold. And like, so if you're, a youth, so like, let's say 16 to 24, and you need a safe place to go, where you're staying at is not safe, or you don't have a place at all, call Covenant House and see if they got a bed available. They will, or at least go to CSS across the road from the main building, and they can get you situated with getting you support and getting you off the streets or into a safer situation. They have in-house counseling, in-house social workers, in-house spiritual advisor. They have a gym, a gymnasium, an art room, a music room. You get a bed. Like, if you once a bed is available, and you're the first one to call. And I honestly didn't even know places like Covenant House existed. Like, they have Covenant Houses across North America, mostly in the States. Like, I know there's one in Vancouver and there's one in Toronto. I'm not too sure what other cities may have them, but Covenant House is the best of the best of the homeless shelters, and it's focused for youth. And yeah, and you get like a support worker, I will say, and they like that's your go-to person to access resources from Covenant House, and they can take you to your appointments and, like that kind of thing. Like, help you get yourself situated and on your feet and ready to, face. I will also add that if you're below the age of 19 when you go there and access that service, they do notify the Ministry of Child Services and Family Development just to say, hey, this minor came in and accessed, these resources. I was 18 at the time. Like, I'm basically an adult. I can vote. Not like a full on legal adult, which I think was kind of bullshit. I can be homeless on the streets, but I can't buy cigarettes from the store. Also, if you're in downtown Vancouver and you need some cheap smokes, there's a place in East Vancouver called Pigeon Park, and you'll find people selling $5 packs of cigarettes. So if you ever need like a cheap pack of smokes, you can go there. Yeah. So and it was nice at Covenant House. Choose your friends wisely, I will say. But, be cordial, respectful kind of thing. I say that because I wasn't cordial and respectful all the time. Just immaturity, I guess, at that age. But I did meet some really awesome people there, and I kind of got over my own immaturity and got to know some of these people that I had, I'll call them riffs with, and, got to know them and actually talk to them and learn about them and understand them in a better way. So, but yeah, I met some really awesome people there, and it was good. And then I eventually just got into like depression. That's the best way I can describe it. Just that's when reality hit me, is what I'll say. Reality hit me, and I'm like, I have to go to school or get a job or something. I can't just, stay at Covenant House for the next however long. And honestly, like, my brother was like, I'll fly you, to New Brunswick. You can come live with me. And at that point, I just like didn't want to do anything like I just wanted to sleep, eat, and I just wanted things to be okay. I just wanted things, I guess, to go back to normal, and I wanted to have some normalcy again in my life. That's what I wanted, and I couldn't mentally just like handle going to school or getting work or, traveling across the country at that point. That just wasn't on the table. So thankfully, like, I eventually went back to live with my nan, and that's how I got off the streets. And like, I wasn't like, and how I chose on my own volition. I think that's the word. My own volition, my own free will to go to Vancouver. Like, and my reason for going over there was like honestly a spiritual seeking journey. I was searching for something, and I wanted to experience something different. I grew tired of the town I grew up in. I grew tired of the people I was around, and I had enough, and I wanted something different. And at that point, almost anything was better than staying in Courtney, where I'm from. So I made the decision to go. And a little did I know that this experience would really change how I view the world, especially being older now. I'm almost 21. I was 18 when this experience of being on the streets happened. And being able to reflect on this time has really put things into perspective on how we as a society and in our culture, how we view homeless people, how we help homeless people, how people end up homeless. Did you know in recent years, BC, 147 homeless people die in a year? There are an estimated to be, for every one person visible on the street in BC, there's an estimated 3 to 4 people couch surfing, or living in vehicles. That's known as hidden homelessness. In Metro-Vancouver, so that's the regional that encompasses actual Vancouver, Surrey, Coquitlam, New Westminster, and the surrounding cities, 33% of the homeless population identifies as Indigenous, despite making up only 2% of the general population in the region. That's crazy. Nationwide in Canada, approximately 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness in any given year. On any given night, roughly 35,000 Canadians are homeless. Youth ages 13 to 24 make up approximately 20% of the total homeless population in Canada. Estimates suggest that 4.4% of homeless people in Canada are veterans of the Canadian Armed Forces, and seniors 65 plus are the fastest growing demographic of shelter users in Canada, often due to fixed incomes failing to meet rising rents. That is sad. In North America, the most recent HUD data for the US shows 653,100 people experiencing homelessness right now, the highest number since the federal government began tracking in 2007. And that's just the people who they're able to track down. That's probably not including missing homeless people who ended up dead or people that, they just miss. That's just their best guess on how many people are homeless within the United States. Roughly 30% of the unhoused population in North America is unhoused, or rather chronically homeless, unhoused for more than a year or multiple times over several years. Approximately 40% of people experiencing homelessness in North America are unsheltered, sleeping on streets, in parks, or in cars. And this is the math that goes into the cost of this crisis. Costs taxpayers roughly $55,000 to $130,000 per year to manage one person in a state of chronic homelessness. That goes towards police, ER visits, shelters, and court. Providing permanent supportive housing or early intervention costs roughly $15,000 to $25,000 per year. For every dollar invested in early childhood education and prevention, society sees a return of roughly $7 to $13 in reduced social costs. That's prison, healthcare, and emergency services. If a youth is not returned to a stable environment within the first 2 weeks of being on the street, their chances of falling into the justice system or long-term addiction increases by 60%. That reminds me of this one time I was on the SkyTrain going back to downtown Vancouver from, I think it was Pattison, and I just had something like pretty traumatic happen to me, and I was on the SkyTrain, and I'm just minding my business on my phone, and no, did I have a phone? Or my phone might have been dead. But I see this girl and she's on her phone. So I'm like, hey, can you look? Oh yeah, this was my first night at Covenant House. I was like, hey, can you give me the directions to Covenant House? And she's like, my phone's dead or whatever. Or she didn't, something was wrong with her phone, or she wasn't able to do that. And we get to talking, and I find out she's 16 years old on the SkyTrain to downtown Vancouver. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing going to downtown Vancouver at your age? And she said that father is abusive, and she was basically running away and escaping her abusive household to go get high on East Hastings. Like, she literally said, I'm going to East Hastings to get high. You should come with me. I'm like, I'm going to Covenant House. You're welcome to come with me if you want. You don't have to, it's up to you. But if you want to, that's where I'm going. You can tag along. She's like, yeah, I'll come with you. So I was still pretty not good with my directions around downtown Vancouver. So me and this girl ended up walking around Chinatown and all over downtown Vancouver for fucking hours. We probably got into downtown Vancouver from the SkyTrain around 11, and I made a call to Covenant House around 11:10. at a convenience store, and I was like, "Hey, um, sorry for not meeting curfew because curfew is at 11. It was 11. It's at 10 on like weekdays, and then it's 11 on Fridays and Saturdays. I'm pretty sure." So I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry for missing curfew. I'm on my way back now. I don't know when I'll be there. Hopefully within the hour." I was like, "Okay, we'll see you when you get here." I was like, "Okay, sounds good." Cut to fucking literally a.m. So what is that? Like 7 hours of walking around downtown Vancouver trying to find Covenant House. Eventually we did end up finding it. Fuck. Been sitting for a while. And this girl was stealing rolling papers from the convenience store that I was calling at, and I was like on the phone. I was like, "I'm so sorry," like mouthing the words like, "I'm so sorry," like about her. And then we get to another convenience store right next to East Hastings, and she's stealing again. And at this point, I was pissed because I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to Covenant House and leave you here because you keep stealing. And then this guy was like, "How old is she?" Like, she's 16, and she's like, "You can't." He's like, "You can't leave her here." I was like, "Then quit fucking stealing," because I didn't want to get like the cops called on me for like what she was doing. And then just before we had gotten into the second convenience store, she was like, "Let's go to East Hastings and get high. Like, you can be my muscle." And I'm like, "No." I was like, "We're not going to East Hastings. We're going to Covenant House." And then I was like, "Well," I was like, "You can go." Well, it got to the point where I was like, "I'm going to Covenant House," and like, I didn't want like, I'm not just gonna let a 16-year-old girl go get high on East Hastings, you know? But, like, it gets to the point where I'm not in control of you, and if you're gonna go suck some dick for fucking, crack or whatever, I can't stop you if you're that determined to go. But I was like, we're not going to East Hastings, we're going to Covenant House." And she was also I think she was high on the Xanax too. Like, 'cause she was like I was like, "That's just a fucking recipe for disaster if you go." And I'm like, "And there's no way I'm gonna be your muscle and get fucking murked on East Hastings." So anyways, so we ended up actually, having a conversation at a bench because we were walking, we were pretty tired. But we had a conversation when, like, we got to know each other a bit more. And then eventually we fucking got to Covenant House. And yeah, she hopefully got some help. I don't know if she stayed the night there or what ended up happening with her. Like, when I went upstairs to go to sleep or wherever, that was like the last time I saw her, but hopefully she got the help she needed. I don't know if she would have remembered the walk or like how she got to Covenant House, but yeah, definitely seemed a bit like I was like a divine intervention, you could say, for this girl. The SkyTrain takes you like right into downtown, so it's not that hard to get to East Hastings, but yeah, I really hope she got the help she needed. Did you know that up to 45% of unhoused individuals report that the loss of physical ID is the primary barrier preventing them from accessing housing or employment? Regarding mental health, while often blamed as the cause, roughly 25 to 35% of the homeless population has a serious mental illness. The remaining 65% plus are primarily victims of economic displacement or lack of affordable housing. And in North America, nearly 50% of the youth homeless population has spent time in the foster care or child welfare system. These are insane statistics. We have, at least in Canada, we have the education, the minds, the resources, the manpower to get some serious solutions in place and serious preventions in place to stop people from becoming homeless and to help the currently homeless population. Because it's not just that drug addict that you see on the street. It's also could be your grandpa or your grandma or somebody's grandpa or grandma. It could be you one day. It could be your children one day. It could be the barista who serves you coffee in the morning. It could be the receptionist that checks you in to your hotel at night. So as we end the podcast episode, I'm going to leave you with some questions to think about. How do we prevent our youth from becoming homeless? How can we improve the supports already in place, whether it's from government or community services. What supports are needed? Because lots of government services and supports and supports that are in community and from community are underfunded and often lack any meaningful and lasting effects for the people who use and access that support. So, you listening now, how do you see us moving forward and helping the most vulnerable during their time of need? If you made it this far, I thank you for listening and taking the time to hear my stories of being on the streets and the stories of the people who I've met on the streets. I hope that my words have inspired you to even just give that homeless person on the street a smile, maybe some change or a sandwich or coffee. Maybe it inspires you to donate, and maybe it inspires you to actually learn about the people who you see on the streets every single day. That one coffee, that one hug, that one heart to heart, that one cigarette, that one A&W cup of wine could make the difference of if someone continues living or not, or if someone has that hope in themselves and in humanity. Don't be the reason thousands of people die. Don't contribute by being ignorant to the reality, because one day it could be you. One day it could be your kids. One day it could be your grandmother or grandfather. One day it could be your friend or your brother, sister, cousin. And more often than not, you already know someone who's homeless or has been homeless, or you yourself have been. This has been Kyle Antoine, your host of the Late Night Cool Down. I hope you have a wonderful night or morning or whenever you're listening, and make it your mission to be kind, especially to the ones most vulnerable and the ones who don't have much, because that one act of kindness could be the wind in the fire that keeps the flame going, even if it's just a little bit longer. We mustn't ever lose hope in others, and we must give hope when we have it. Without hope, we are nothing. But yeah, thank you for listening. I didn't expect this to be this long of an episode, but this is a very deep and heavy topic that deserves this time and energy put into it, and definitely deserves that time and energy from as many people as possible.